Okay, today we're going to tell you how to build a transmission for tractor pulling. Hopefully it'll stand up on the track, but we're going to give you some pointers on how to put it together the correct way, and it should help you out in the long run. First thing you got to do is first gut the transmission completely out, take all the bearings out of it until you got just the bare case. And what we're going to do, we're going to show you where you got to clearance the transmission case for the Dodge Dart rear end right now. If you put the Dodge Carrier in, you got to grind this off, grind this down, and thin it down right here. And once you get that done, you'll be able to put the carrier in with the ring gear on and the bearings off, and it'll slide right in for you. And when you're doing this grinding on these cases like this with this die grinder, make sure you use eye protection. Keeps your eyes in good shape after that, and you can see when you're done. So remember that. Okay, the best thing to use for grinding is a cutoff wheel. Is what you use in an air die grinder. It works really fast, and you'll see here it'll take the material off really fast, and it does a pretty good job too. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to show you where to clearance your case out to put like the bigger gears in, or you're going to do a 3-speed pulling set. First what we're going to do is take this flashing on the casting. We're going to take this flashing down and smooth it out here and here. And over on the front side there's the same casting there. The next thing we got to do, clearance for the bigger gear ratio, something like bigger than 21, 2, 3 tooth in second gear and low gear. You got to clearance this off here so it clears. Now we never take this off all the way. If you use a 3-speed, you clearance this down and use a long set screw in here in neither shaft in place of the regular bolt for it to clear the gear. So we'll show you how this is done. Next step is to make sure you have all the gaskets removed from the transmission case and clean it up, and then you're ready to reassemble it. You're going to start by putting the bearings back in the transmission case. You'll put the pinion bearing in, the top shaft bearing in, and then from there the next step we'll go to setting the rear end up. And we got to do the bearing preload first. That's the first step of it. So when we get done with that, we'll go on from there. So we'll see in a little bit. Okay, now we have the transmission case cleaned up, got the bearings installed, we got the pinion bearing down here installed, and this is the top shaft bearing installed. Next step we're going to do is going to install the carrier. In this particular situation we're using a transmission spool, a rear end spool. And here's the spool right here. We usually leave this bearing off right here. We'll put this in the transmission first, like that. I'll slip right in. And notice we don't have the pinion, because what we're going to do right now, we're going to set the bearing, carrier bearing preload. So let's get that set up. We're going to put the bearings on. I'm going to bolt this cap on solid, and then we're going to set it from the other side. So we'll get back to you in a little bit here. Okay, we got the carrier, or in this case the spool, installed inside the transmission. We got the left bearing cup tightened up tight against the face of the transmission, and there's no spacers on it, no shims at all. And now we're going to take the right bearing cup, and we put this onto into the transmission. Again, no shims in it. The bearings are there. Beforehand I put a light coat of film on the bearings so they rotate easy. We're going to put this in here. We're going to tighten the 3 bolts up. Just finger tight. Try to do this evenly. And then once you get them finger tightened down evenly like that, we'll take the ratchet and we're just going to snug these bolts down evenly until we start getting some preload in this thing here. Okay, starting to get some bearing preload now. It's starting to have a little bit of load on it. The book says you should have 1 pound to 3 pounds of pull on these bearings. So 1 to 3 pounds is about like this here. Once we get the carrier bearing preload set, what we do is a good rule of thumb to know if it's right or not. Just grab the ring gear, give it a spin. You want it to spin just by giving it a quick flick, about a half a round. Anything looser than that, it's probably too loose. Anything tighter than that, it's probably too tight. But usually we look for about a half a round of spin, and that seems to be really close right there. Next thing we're going to do, now we're going to measure this gap right here with some feeler gauges and see what kind of shims it's going to take to get that kind of preload. What I do is I just take a stack of feeler gauges and keep playing with it until I get the right fit down here. And once we figure that out, we'll measure it, put that many shims in it. Getting really close there. Okay, that seems to be a pretty good fit. Pretty good fit there. Now we'll measure it. We're getting about 66 thousandths worth of shims. So now we'll take the cup loose and we'll get 66 thousandths worth of shims out and see how it fits. Okay, we went and got 66 thousandths worth of shims. Usually the feeler gauge will get you really close to what you did. Matter of fact, we put 66 thousandths worth of shims here, a little bit tight, so we add another 3.5 thousandths. Cub Cadet makes shims for these things. The thickest shim is 28 thousandths. Then it goes 14 thousandths, 7 thousandths, 3.5 thousandths. That's the 4 different shims that Cub Cadet has. So you can just split the difference you need, get the preload you want. We'll snug this up and then check and see if our work is right now. It should be right where we need to have it. Okay, we got that snugged up. Yep, it's got a good fill to it. It's got about a half round of spin. So right there is the shims we're going to use later in the transmission to set the backlash. That's the total stack of shims, because we know if we use all those shims, that'll keep our bearing preload right, whether some's on the left side, some on the right side, to get our backlash correctly. Okay, on some transmissions, when you're doing a small ratio gear set on the top shaft, like say a 22 top gear for third gear and smaller, the bottom gear gets bigger and bigger. And right down here, this nubbin here, 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 and here, the gear will hit. It won't clear it. You'll need to take a grinder and remove this nubbin down here and here on those 4 spots till that gear will clear when you have the bottom shaft in. So just a pointer, if you're going to put like a 22th gear in third gear or something smaller, you'll need to do some grinding on there. And then all the way down, like if you have a 16 tooth for high gear, for third gear, you'll need to take that down. It'll be all the way down to the case down at the bottom. Around it, it's a pretty big circle. It's a lot of grinding, but in about a half hour you have it done. Right here's the bottom pinion shaft, which runs the ring gear. Here's the front bearing holder retainer. Here's the bearing, and there's the pinion bearing plate that we use. It's a reinforced plate. It's unlike the stock plate, it's just a tin plate. Keeps the pinion from getting pushed forward when there gets to be load on it, and when the pinion pushes forward, it'll break a ring and pinion then. But here's the gears on the bottom shaft that go on this bottom shaft that run the top shaft gear. The top shaft gears run these. And you can see this is a 20, 21 gear set. Here's a 22, 23. That's what we're building today. Gears always have to add up to 52. 20 and 32, that's 52. 31 and 21, 52. 22 and 30, 52. 29 and 23, 52. So that's how it all adds up. This gets stacked in. This goes on first after you slide the pinion shaft through part way. This go on. This next gear slide on the shaft, followed by the wide spacer, followed by the next gear, followed by the thin spacer between the second and third gear. Here comes the next gear, the next wide spacer, the next gear, and here's your stock front spacer. The taper spacer goes on the end of the shaft here, right behind the bearing. And that's your stack then. And then that'll be the bearing and the nuts on the other end of it. Now it'll go inside the transmission case. That's what we're going to do here next. Take this pinion, we're going to put that inside the transmission. Don't forget the little bearing race that goes under for that rear pinion bearing. We're going to stick that in here first. Slide the first spacer in there. Put that up on the start of the shaft. Only stick the shaft in part way. Leave enough room to get the gear around the end of it. Put the 32 tooth gear in there. That slides right on perfectly. Now from the front hole, just put the next spacer. Slide that in, the wide one, the inch 230 spacer. Now we'll take the 31 tooth gear next. I'm going to slide that over top the shaft. And line up just perfect here. Take the little front spacer, slip that on, and do the next gear. Drop that down over the end of the shaft. That's dropped over. Next we'll take the last big spacer, that on, and we'll take the last bottom gear, slip that over the front of the over the end of the shaft. You just kind of hold the thing in place. You just want to jiggle it back and forth to get all the gears lined up on there, up on the spline. You know when they're on about all the way, because you'll see This bottom gear will be about right where it has to be on the case like that. Then you want to take this front spacer, this front taper spacer, slide that on. Now we have to press that, now we're going to put this cup on, and we're going to have to press the bearing on. The bearing's a press fit on that shaft. So what we'll do, we have a fixture made, we'll show you how that works. It holds the pinion in place while you put all that stuff on. Okay, we made this simple, it's a simple pinion fixture. It's a piece of all thread, 3/8 all thread, piece of 1/2 inch plate, drilled a couple holes in the back that bolt onto the transmission housing back here. This tapered shaft goes in the middle of the pinion shaft. And just put these holes, I just bolt this thing on just temporary here like this. Holds that pinion in place for us. And then next we'll take the cup. We're going to stick this inside the transmission case like this. We'll just bolt it on temporary with 2 bolts just to kind of hold it in place while we bound the bearing in place. Don't forget the shims. A good starting place is just take the shims that you took out of the transmission, stick right back on that. We're going to check the pinion depth here in a little bit. If you do that, 95% of the time your pinion depth will be okay when you're done. That's shoved in there now. What we do for the bearing, I just take a 3/4 inch deep well socket, stick the bearing up on the shaft, put that on there like that, and just drive the bearing into the transmission. That's it all the way now. Now you can remove your bearing, your pinion holder fixture. And that part of it's done. Okay, we got the pinion in. Next we're going to take these bolts out here that held that thing in place temporary. And we're going to put this pinion bearing plate on. The tapered side goes to the bottom. That's made to clear the front reduction housing. I use the stock 2 bolts in the bottom there. It's like a 3/4 inch bolt. Then we use the 1 inch long 5/16 bolt in the top. And we'll tighten this thing down. Okay, we got that front pinion bearing plate torqued down. Next, you torque those bolts, by the way, to 20 foot-pounds. Next, we'll put the big nut on here. If you don't have an impact tighten this down, what you do, you put the top shaft in, you put it in 2 separate gears at one time, and then that will lock the transmission in place. Then you can go ahead and tighten it out with the torque wrench. The torque spec on it is 85 foot-pounds. What we do, we torque this to tight with the impact, 1/2 inch drive impact, and that works the best. One more hit. Next thing you got to do is stake that down. Use a staking punch. You got to stake that nut in place so don't back off. Just put that on there. Give it a couple hits and that will stake that nut in place. Nut staked in place now. And then we're ready to put the top shaft in. Last time I spoke to you, we were going to put the top shaft in, but before that, it'll be a little easier. You can do that at that time, but it'll be a little easier now to put the carrier in. We're going to put the spool in now, and we already got the shims and that stuff figured out. We just got to get the backlash set. Make sure you put a light coat oil on those bearings before you go in there. Put that on. What we'll do again, just like last time, we'll put the left bearing cup in without any shims on, and we'll just snug it down with our fingers till we get the other side put on. We'll get this thing turned to the right spot. These cups only go on one way, and usually whatever way you go, it's the other way. It's just bad. It's just dumb luck otherwise, you know, getting it right. Unless you mark it. If you get smarter than the machine, then you can mark it, and then you'll know where it has to be. But if you go through life as ignorant bliss, you'll just keep turning around until you find it. Okay, we got this side finger tightened down now. Okay, now we'll take the other one. Now we'll take these shims off that we had before. That's the shims we're going to use. We're going to just take them off and set them to the side. Okay, this side, the right side, we actually marked the cup with a little X that goes on the bottom. Makes it a little quicker to get this lined up. Now you put that cup in, just like we did last time. We're going to do all the same steps basically. We're going to finger tighten these bolts down until we get the backlash right. Then we'll do this measurement again. And that should get us close to what the backlash should be. For the shims, for the right amount of shims for the backlash. hear that right there? There's some looseness in there yet. You can hear it rattling. We're just trying to start snugging this up. Tell me the backlash disappears. We like to run our transmissions with 0 backlash. The book calls for 3 to 5 thousandths backlash, but you'll find tractor pulling it works better to have 0 backlash in it. Keeps all that slop out of it. Tighten that set up a little bit. Try to get close to the right pinion bearing, right bearing preload. We'll start loosening this other side up to let the whole thing move over. There, now right now we're at like 0 backlash. You can check that real easy just by reaching in here, wiggling the top shaft. You want to check that, just go around it, make sure it's right. There, it's just a snug fit right now, so there's like 0 backlash. Actually, probably just a little bit of tension on it, which is a good thing to have. And then get that right. You're just going to take a little bit of backlash off that, a little tension off, just add a little more tension to it. There, that feels real good. And then you want to check while you got to this point. This is now we want to check your pinion depth. If you look down there, if you look down there, you want this pinion depth. That pinion gear should be even with the ring gear. See how that pinion gear is right even with the ring gear? Right there is where that is a perfect set where you want that to be. You want a perfect mesh like that. If it's down, if the pinion gear is down below the ring gear, you're going to need to take some shims out of that shaft, out of that front spacer, so that all comes back a little bit. If it's sticking past here a little bit, you're going to take some shims and add to it to bring that out. So you want that just perfectly even like that. That'll give you the correct pattern, wear pattern on here. And that will help your transmission survive on the track. Now we got this set where it needs to be. Now we're going to see how much shims it's going to take, and it's going to take obviously less than what we had starting out with. We're just going to do the same thing with some feeler gauges here again. There's the thickest ones. Now we're going to drop down to 2. Let's just keep there. That one's really pretty close there. We'll check in a couple spots, a little looser there, so we know it's going to be pretty close to this measurement. We got about 36 thousandths. So 36 thousandths, we'll take a 28 and a 14. That should give us about 36 thousandths. It's about 39 right there. We'll try the 39 thousandth one, and we'll see how it fits. Okay, we got these bolts tightened down now. We have 39 thousandths worth of shims there, and that should get us pretty close where I think we need to be. It feels pretty good. It's got some backlash, a little bit of pressure on there, but not bad. What we'll do, we'll kind of check our work now. We're going to take this bearing cup off, and we're going to put the rest of these shims on this bearing cup, tighten it down, see where we're at, and then if it feels right or feels tight, we can make the adjustment by that 3.5 thousandths shim from one side to the other. So we'll do that first, and we'll be right back to you. Okay, we got the shims put in that side here, and we had left over on the other side. We're just tightening these bolts down now. Now it's got the correct bearing preload. Now we're going to check the drag on it, or the backlash, to see if it's about right. And see, it feels really good. Check for backlash. We have just very little backlash, maybe a thousandth of backlash. Just barely anything there. So that is all set up, ready to go pulling. So what we're going to do now is just go through here, make sure all the bolts are torqued down tight. They should be. We'll get the torque wrench out here in a little bit because they're supposed to be torqued to 30 foot-pounds. And we'll do that here, and then it'll be ready to go. Okay, we're just tightening the bolts down, just finishing up. All at 30 foot-pounds of torque right now. We'll check the other side here quick. Okay, those are all torqued down. We're ready to go. Now we're going to rotate the transmission around, and we'll get ready for the top shaft together. Okay, this transmission we're doing here is a 4-speed transmission. If you ever happen to be doing just a 2-speed transmission, what you want to do is this front spacer, this is an aftermarket one. The stock one was in there that we put in earlier. The stock one is 850 thousandths thick from here to here. The aftermarket gears are thicker, and that will mess up the neutral gates if you just put that gear set in and not do anything with the spacer. Midwest Super Cub sells these spacers already machined off. They're machined 65 thousandths off. They're that much thinner because that's how much thicker the aftermarket gears are. You put them in and they will work just fine for you. It's a drop-in fit, no machining. They're $10. Easily worth the money. You can't hardly get a machine for $10 otherwise. Next thing we're going to do now, we're going to go on to the top shaft. Okay, we put these gears in. We put the biggest rear gear in here to the smallest gear in the front. So the transmission gears got to be the biggest gear here to go against the small gear to the smallest gear there to go against the big gear. The 23 tooth will go against that one below it, the 32. This will go in here like this. Like this particular direction right here. So it goes smallest to biggest. So what we end up with a 4-speed, that'll be just in a stair steps is what it'll be. This thing lined up. Tap that shaft in. So it's got 20, 21, 22, 23. Now we'll just quickly check to make sure they mesh right. Good mesh there. Mesh there with some backlash, it's good. We'll go forward here, that's fine there. And we're going to slide this back. That's fine there too. So all the gears are ready to go. So you might want to sure spin them, make sure they run true. They do. We'll bolt the front plate on, and then from there we'll go and get ready to put the forks on. Okay, we'll tighten it down, and we'll get ready for the forks. Okay, next thing we're going to do is put the springs in there. We just use stock springs in ours. Some people sell the heavier detent springs. We don't believe in it, you know, people still have trouble with that. Use the stock springs, the stock detent balls, and use a physical solid shifter lock where you lock it in with a pin on your shifter. That's the best and most sure way it's going to hold in gear. So put the springs in. We're going to put the little balls in here. Get them on each side. Thing you don't want to do is drop it on the bottom of the transmission. Now we're going to next install the shifter rail. We just use a 1/4-inch punch to push down the spring. Get that one installed. Over the other side. Okay, that one's installed. Now we're going to put the forks in. Left fork to slip it over top of the gear. Should line right up. Push the detent into the second detent. That's the neutral gate detent. Right there's the neutral gate one. Over there one. Same thing to their side. Stick this into the neutral gate one, the second detent. Here's the neutral gate one. Now what we're going to do we're going to find the neutral gate we like. What I do, easiest way to do this is spin it back and forth. Spin it, move it back. There's your stop there. Here's where it starts hitting the gear there. You want to go kind of midway between, so you want to just make a mark on the shaft, the marker. Like there, we want to drill that hole there to lock the fork to the rail on that one. Do the same way their way. And they should come up. This should come up pretty lined up right there, like they are now. And we'll mark that one. Then all we do now is just take the shift rails back out, take the forks off, and we'll drill them, and then we'll reinstall them, and we'll be done. Okay, now we got the holes drilled for the shifter rails. We'll put the shift forks back in. Again, we're going to slide them in place like I did before. We're going to slide it back to the neutral gate as the second hole. Rear fork in. Same thing there. There, now we're going to take and start the bolts. Again, we're going to do like before. We're going to go back and forth till we find the neutral gate we like it. I like to space them toward the back gear set more, because most people have a rake on their transmission or the front of their tractors down lower. So gravity will make those gears want to walk toward the front side of the fork, and it takes up the slop of that fork then. So we're gonna go like right there. This seems to be pretty good. That one. We'll do this one here now. Really pretty good right there. And we'll take a socket. We'll tighten it down. Make sure you tighten these down pretty tight. You hate to have those bolts work loose and go down through the gears. It'd really be a bad day for the gears. There. Sounds like it's pretty good. Now we're going to check the neutral gates and the shift travel. We're going to go up here, shift this one forward, and you can see down past the gears easy enough. Hard to see if you know what you're looking for. You can see it's going fully in gear. I'll pry it back. I'll try the rear set. Get it to hit the gears just right here. There we go. And that's fully engaged. You see the gears right back there, and you see the bottom gear there. I know it's going in all the way right there. And with this one here, go there. Yep, the gear's there. The bottom gear's right below it. And same with the next one here. We're going to check the last gear. Gear's up against the back of the case, flush with the case like that. And your gear below it is flush with the case, so that will go in gear all the way. And it goes back, got a neutral gate. So now we're ready to turn the front side up. And we're going to put the front reduction housing on now. Okay, the next step is put the front cover on. We use silicone rubber instead of the stock gasket. Silicone rubber seems to work really well. And the stock gaskets, you know, seals up really good. Just put a little bit of silicone rubber on this. Put it on the transmission, top right over top of those dial pins. Like that. Tap it in there. Good. Bolts in there. You tighten it down on the dial pins. Over the dial pins first, then the too. Okay, that's done. Next thing you have to do after that is just put the disc brake in, which is an easy fit. It should slide right atop the pinion. That should slide up and down that thing freely so it works. The best this is ever going to get here. So there you go. Don't forget to put your front spacer on. Put on the big gear, taper goes toward the bearing. Okay, put your big front gear on. Line it up. Bolt, lock washer and flat washer on there. And tighten it down. Again, use the impact on this thing because it rotates the way that it wants to loosen, so you want to make sure you get it tight. Now you got to put the disc brake puck in. Got to clean this up yet. Put a little oil on the O-ring, put it in there, tap it right in, and put the front cover on. Okay, the other thing we do on these transmissions we put together on the front covers, here's the stock front cover on retouched. The front seals won't go through it. What we do, we'll take a machine that hole out to 1 3/4 inch. Now that seal will pass through it, so you can do a quick change pinion. Use a 3-inch coupler on the drive shaft, slide the coupler forward, and you can pull the pinion out and replace it with a 1/over pinion right at the track, and there's no taking the cover off or nothing. And your center support bearing on your drive shaft will hold the drive shaft in place to keep the pinion from coming out. The other thing we do too is take this on a sanding disc and just sand the OD, the seal down, so it don't fit so tight in the hole, because that's what holds the bearing in. That way it won't be so hard to pry the bearing out of the hole without breaking the hole, because sometimes you put a bolt there and try to pry it out, you'll actually break the end of the pinion off. And the way to keep that is use the coupler, stick the bolt in the coupler, lay the bolt out of the drive shaft, then pry the coupler in the pinion forward, it'll come loose. Then you get out the rest of the way, have to take the coupler the rest of the way off. But with this way, this won't fit in there as tight. Just to be able to take it just taps in real easy. And then that's ready to go. See when we'll put some silicone on the sills on here. I'm going to show you here, all lined up. Yeah, we'll pass right through the hole. Okay, the last step of this transmission is to put the axles into the spool. These are the Super Cub spools, or the fine spline axles. What you're going to do is slide the axle into the hole. You want to look down in here. Once you get it engaged, you want to make sure you get it lined up with this cut here. Has to go right where the roll pin is. So you line up so the roll pin goes there. Put the roll pin in place. Then pound that roll pin down through there. It'll hold the axle right where it needs to be. Okay, that one's in all the way. Then the rear axle should butt right up against this other one, and the rear roll pin will go in. Put it through like that. Drive the roll pin in. And there you have it. Now you have yourself a transmission that's ready to run for the track. Axles are in, backlash seems really good. Gear shifts work good, and you'll be ready to go pulling.